Please sit. Put your money on the table. Welcome. The cards can illuminate your future. I have a feeling you're in danger.
Warner Brothers launched a franchise in the Christmas of 2009. It was extremely successful, so now we have a sequel, Elementary. Hello there to everyone and welcome back once again to RealScreenReviews.com. I am movie critic Nick Iacobucci, and our next movie review is Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows. This time period action and mysterious adventure opened round the globe on Friday, December 16th, 2011, and returning in the title roles of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson are Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law. This sequel comes to us from Guy Richie, the man that brought us the first one, as well as Snatch, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and N Rolla. They all reteamed just a few years after the success of the first installment to see if they can strike box office gold once again. This time around, we see Master Detective Sherlock Holmes meeting his match in the mind of Professor Moriarty. Not only can he match wits with our criminal sleuth, he has the definite advantage of not having a conscience to his actions, and he doesn't have to play by the rules either. It seems that the Prince of Austria has been found dead, and all the evidence leads us to believe a demise of suicide. However, upon further investigation, Mr. Holmes soon realizes that simple logic and deduction points to foul play. As Holmes and Watson dig a little deeper, they come to deduce that this is only one mere part of a very intricate plot designed by the cunning professor, who I might add always seems to be one step ahead of England's most famed detective. Our two heroes must also take the action to France, Germany, and Switzerland if they are to save the world from this dastardly fiend. Well, people, I was not a huge fan of the first Guy Richie-Robert Downey collaboration back in 2009, but I'm happy to say that I did like this one at least a little bit more than that one. There are some really good action sequences, and they did give us a healthy chunk of mystery to be solved. It's not a below-average story, sometimes managing to hide a murder within another crime, and the movie stays intriguing as it plays on. The banter is back between the two leads, and so is the bromance, but this time I didn't think that I minded it anywhere near as much as the first time because I knew that it was coming. Though the movie is not great, Downey's charm was still as solid as ever, and Jude Law, well, he was Jude Law. Now, I will say that director Guy Richie has paced this film faster and quicker than the previous, and he once again regains the grainy and gritty feel of the first one. The parts where Sherlock Holmes is figuring things out in his head, I think, are some of the most entertaining moments. Call it using his superpower, if you will. Richie uses sharp cuts and fast editing, and I think this style works so very well when depicting this because the mind itself works in flashes, so it really seems to fit. However, on a whole, I would say that this was a very safe film for Richie to make, and not a lot of chances or challenges were taken in this complete studio project. Sherlock Holmes' brother also added some humor to the story, and Noomi Rapace, the original girl with the dragon tattoo, was very good in her English language debut. However, the best and most interesting character in Game of Shadows was, of course, Professor Moriarty. Tip your hat to Jared Harris for gathering together terror, cunning, and an Englishman's graciousness to bring to life a very credible equal to Downey's Holmes. You know, it's very tough portraying someone as known as the literary character of Professor Moriarty. Now, I bet that it's quite a bit of fun being one of the most famous villains of all time, but when you tackle a project like this, the actor is almost always just one line of dialogue away from turning into Dr. Evil or Goldfinger, and Jared Harris never succumbs to such a thing. He's so intelligent and engaging that I found myself rooting for him sometimes, almost like I do for Alan Rickman's Hans Gruber from the original Die Hard, and even Holmes had admiration for the skill of his crimes. Now, considering the vintage Conan Doyle stories, this film franchise definitely piles on the action, and maybe a bit too much of it. I think that all of the guns and bombs deter from the core character of Sherlock Holmes, and he should be allowed to slow down enough to actually solve something. It is entertaining, but if they up the campiness any more going forward, it's going to turn into the Batman franchise of the 90s, and that would be the Joel Schumacher films. By the end, the bickering between Holmes and Watson might wear on you a bit, but hey, at least it's not Adam Sandler playing a set of twins. Oh, and one last gripe, and I think this was one of the same gripes I had from the last film. There's too much gray in it. Throughout the entire feature, it's like we're in the Gotham City of 1900, and it just could have used some more color throughout. The funny thing is that they travel through more than a few countries in Europe, and they all look the same. I guess that Europe must be a pretty gray place. At over 2 hours, Sherlock Holmes' Game of Shadows was a tad too long, but not enough to make a federal case about it. In a time of the year when you have a whole bunch of family films playing like The Muppets, Arthur Christmas, and Alvin and the Chipmunks, this more mature and gritty action film really struck a good chord. The action scene running through the woods was truly exciting to watch, and it was captured in a slow motion or almost bullet time, and taken all together on a whole, the film had enough fun moments for it to be considered an enjoyable experience at the theater. A solid 3 stars out of 4 for the return of Robert Downey Jr. in Sherlock Holmes, Game of Shadows. And remember people, I'm not always right, but only when it comes to the movies, and thank you very much for your attention.
I'm on my honeymoon!